Now recording.
Hello and welcome to the Roundtable Podcast. I'm Shogun. Thank you to our recorders, to our live audience, and to everybody joining us through YouTube, Podcast Addict, or Podbean, or any of other platforms. We have the Roundtable Discord server. Please join us by Googling Roundtable Discord or going to Discord. Sorry about my cat. He wants to go outside. And you can also go to Discord through the politics or conspiracy theory sections. We're on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, you name it. Even on something called mind.com as of today, whatever that is. We have Minecraft server, etc. So we're everywhere. RoundtableDiscord.com. So, today my special guest is the notorious 0biwon, my old friend, fellow UFC enthusiast, Scandinavian, party person. How are you, sir?
I am very fine and honored to be invited. Thank you very much.
Well, we are honored to have you. We are honored to
Thank
have members from all around the world, and we like to get their perspective on the world issues, and the countries they're from. So, sir, what part of the world do you reside in?
Some call it Europe. Others know it as Scandinavia. And I specifically come from the smallest of the countries and locally acclaimed to be swamp of Scandinavia. That is Denmark.
Denmark. So that would make you Danish or a Dane,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. The
Very
Dane
cool.
is like Daneland, but that's an old way of saying it. We call it Denmark today.
Denmark, right.
Yes.
So, so many angles we could approach. It's a very interesting history, of course, which we should talk about, and then current affairs, also your own personal thoughts and experiences. So I'm trying to think of. Let's start with a little bit of history. So the Danes, is it correct to say they were Vikings? They were connected to the Vikings somehow, right?
Oh yes. We in Denmark specifically we like to call ourselves the originators of the so-called wave of Vikings or Norsemen, so to say. But we are like all like Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. We are in many ways equally responsible for the savagery of the Vikings. Yes.
Right. So the Vikings, very interesting. When I was a kid, I had a set of encyclopedias, and I read the entries on Vikings, and it's just mind-boggling. These cases of truth is stranger than fiction.
In
Um,
many ways, indeed.
yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to tell you about your own history, but just what I learned from those encyclopedias was essentially that these warriors came from, they would leave their crops, growing in the field, and then they'd go raiding, and they would come in these long boats, very powerful seafaring people, very good at ocean crossings. And they would come in these longboats and they would attack European civilizations, or rather Christendom, and they would come from the sea, so you couldn't really predict where they were going to come, make it very hard to prepare a defense. And there was lots of monasteries, and the monasteries had lots of treasures, like relics and gold for like crosses and icons of saints. And of course, the monks couldn't fight and didn't have any weapons and were not fighters. So the Vikings would just come and kill all the priests and rape all the nuns and then take all the treasure and all the gold and stuff. And every time the European kings tried to stop them, they just got their asses kicked because, as Dan Carlin talks about, these people were just bigger and stronger and tougher.
Hmm.
And then the really trippy part was they were never defeated in battle, but according to my encyclopedias, they essentially converted themselves to Christianity because they kept killing these monks, taking all these treasures, these Bibles, these crosses, these icons back home. And then, of course, the people are seeing them and be like, "What is all these beautiful books and crazy, pictures and arts?" And so they actually became Christians from killing monks and stealing all the shit, and then stopped being Vikings, which is a very bizarre way to stop that. Now, is that accurate to what you've been taught or what you know? I'm not sure if this is true,
I
but
mean, partially. I mean, I wouldn't blame you or anyone else for having this kind of dramatized or theatrical portrayal of the Vikings or Norsemen. I mean, we were big, bulky dudes with beards and smelly armpits that threw axes with no disregard for civilians, women, hierarchy, or anything. Um, but we were for like first and foremost, definitely we were a trading people. We did a lot of stuff ourselves. We hunted a lot and in many ways hunted too much, so we had a lot of stuff to trade, and we were because of our culture or way of life. We did live very well. We ate well. We fought well. We lived well, so to say. Um, so we had a lot to give as well, and that was our utmost. How should you like not mission but objective when going abroad was to trade and get acquainted with foreign people, but specifically in relation to Christianity and the meeting of the more central or West European culture, the Romanized culture, so to say. Um, basically, well, it's based in supremacy or like the feeling of one being superior to the other, because the Christianity gave its subjects this feeling of grandeur towards the old gods that in many ways, or that's how we see it, corrupted the minds of these people, and they gave up their native traditions. They called it blasphemy, and they killed their own people in the name of righteousness. And they also killed the people that we sent. And if anyone is interested in the Norse people and the Norse traditions and culture, they know that honor is something we hold to high regard. And when you kill our people, there is very little that's going to stop us from enacting revenge, be it from one direction or another. And I would say that still goes today, even besides the size of our country and area. Like we're still pretty badass. Um, but yes, unfortunately, through our fighting and revenge on the Christians, a lot of our chieftains and a lot of our people and soldiers, our kings even, ended up being, I mean, I don't know how to seduced by the word of these Middle Eastern philosophers. And of course, I mean, it's beautiful literature. It's very different. It was illuminated in a way that maybe the old ways wasn't. But the evil that book brought with it, I don't, and a lot of Scandinavian people would agree, like it doesn't make sense. So our king, he, yeah, well, you all know him as Harald Bluetooth, but our king basically, well, and it's a very sad thing for me, but he sold out most of Scandinavia because Denmark at that time, or what was the Danish sovereign nation, kind of, I don't know. I mean, we ruled a lot of Scandinavia, so when he gave up the Danish sovereignty, yeah, he gave up a lot of Scandinavia as a whole, and Christianity took a hold after Harald Bluetooth. Um, and ever since, I mean, Christianity has had an iron grip on the previously very proud and in all ways industrious people of the North. That is very unfortunate.
Okay, so speaking of fighters, I'm trying to remember. I don't know if you'll know this, but I'm sure you will. Alexander Gustafsson, is he Danish? Mahler?
Oh no, he is Swedish actually.
Swedish, isn't that? Yeah, see, wow.
Yeah.
Not all Swedes. So,
Not
are you a
all
fan of
Swedes.
Gustafsson? And is he popular in Denmark?
Of course he is. Like he is a brother from another mother. Yeah, to most Danish and I would assume also Norwegian MMA fans. He is definitely a Viking warrior representing us very well,
I'm going to
even though he
ignore
can't beat
this.
John Jones.
Well, some people think he won the first fight. Nobody thinks anybody ever came closer to beating John Jones than Alexander Gustafsson in their first fight. It was
That is
people
true.
arguably think that he actually won that fight and went to the scorecard, and nobody ever gave John that much hell ever, including I believe Daniel Cormier. So he's a fucking, I mean,
A
personal
beast.
hero. I've had actual dreams about beating Alexander Gustafsson, and one thing that you may or may not know that I find really cool about him is he tattoos his entire record on his arm. So his arm, he for each fight he tattoos a diamond on his arm, and when he wins, he tattoos it filled in black. When he loses, it's just outline, like empty,
Mm.
white. And when he gets a draw, it's half white. So his whole arm is tattooed with either black or white or half, and his whole record is he tattoos it on his skin. So there's a guy who
I didn't
fucking
know that detail. That's kind of
isn't
cool,
that
actually.
fucking cool? It's so
That is
cool.
very cool. That
It's
is very
just
cool.
commitment, man. Anyway, sorry, detour. There was supposed to be a big
That's
UFC
all good.
today, but unfortunately that fell through. Otherwise, you
Yeah,
and I would probably be watching it right now.
most likely, most likely.
Yeah, maybe it's okay to talk. There's no reason we can't talk UFC for a minute.
Sure,
Um, well, no, that's the detraction. I see. I let
okay,
myself get
okay,
caught up in that.
fair enough.
So, well, I don't know. We can talk about
It
anything we
is
want,
easy.
but
We can talk in the later stage, maybe.
later on, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about contemporary Denmark. What is it like there? What's the culture like, or rather the climate like there now? I mean, obvious question. How's COVID affecting you guys? Let's start there.
Oh, okay. I mean, actually, we have been running a little bit back and forth because we started out super aggressive. We had a total lockdown of everything, like everything from actual necessary infrastructure, public transport, etc., etc. But that was kept open. However, institutions of all kinds, like in relation to childcare and education, were shut down. Public gathering spots, shops, restaurants, any kind of public area was limited or shut down, and limits was put on gatherings of no less than two people at a time. So you literally couldn't ride in a car with two family members. They also made it a law that if you were a healthcare worker and you forgot to leave the little tiny hand sanitizing bottle or hand gel they get at a hospital to have in their pocket, if you forget to leave that at your job, you could face 30 days in jail. So like they went all the way, like they went full authoritarianism kind of thing. But they did a 180 and they are actually opening society back up in stages from Monday the 20th. So basically tomorrow. So
I
yeah,
see. So aside from coronavirus, what is like? I'm not gonna lie. I haven't studied Scandinavia too deeply, and Denmark in particular, I know very little about. Basic question before I get into the others. You have a monarchy, right? Still, you have a king and a queen or something.
yes, we do. That like they
And
are representative or symbolic. They don't hold any authority.
well, right, but they're your monarchy.
Oh yes, and we
And
love
what are
them.
their names? The
Uh,
current monarchs.
oh, I mean we have Queen Margaret. She
Margaret,
just
what's
had
the last name? Do you know? Well, your children.
she has like four.
Yeah,
Hold on.
even one of them.
She comes from the Frederick line.
Is that correct? Do you know her last name? Any of, like, what do the people call her? Just Margaret?
Yeah, Margaret the Second.
Okay. And her husband, or she has one?
Yeah, but he died.
Okay.
Prince
So she's
Henrik
a widower
or
queen,
Henri.
so to speak.
Yeah.
And is
Yes,
there a
and
crown prince alive?
oh yes, Crown Prince Frederick, her son, and he is the action man that's gonna pull Denmark together, I would say, or that's
Fascinating.
gonna
You actually
gather
think
Denmark.
that? Like he's a
Oh yes,
charismatic, strong young man?
he is. I mean, he is. First of all, he is the Danish equivalent to a Navy SEAL. He
Really?
has yes, actually, and he has foreign deployments, four deployments abroad, two of them in active war zones. As a
Wow.
special operative, he
What
spent
the
two and
hell?
a half year on Greenland patrolling the Arctic in dog sleds,
What the
uh,
heck?
and he's married to this Australian surfer,
That's a badass. What's his name?
Frederick.
Frederick. I'm gonna look into this guy. So he's the Crown Prince of Denmark, but he's a special forces operator.
Oh yes, oh yes. And the
Amazing.
funniest thing is, he was his nickname Pingo, and Pingo is like this fucking. Oh, sorry for my language, but it's
No,
this.
you can swear, just no slurs.
Oh, okay, but yeah, I'll still try to keep it civil. But um, there was this children's show about these penguins. It's all like done with clay and stop motion.
Pingu, I
But
remember.
oh, you have seen it.
I think so. I mean, I think I remember it vaguely somehow.
He was his nickname in the military was Pingo. Because they were bullying him, like he was treated like this royal rat when he came in there, like the rest of the soldiers, and that just gave him like a bunch of like he's gonna show them, like get out of my way, and he just became one of the best because of like the treatment he got to begin with, and now like the nickname Pingo has become like this, like ironic joke to those that gave it to him. So he is actually the action man that could inspire some romanticism
Mm-hmm.
in Denmark and get like yeah,
Well, and
like
that shows, in my opinion, the value of monarchy. I'm becoming kind of. I think I'm borderline a monarchist slash am a monarchist. I mean, Canadians also are a monarchy. We have the Queen is our Queen. Queen of England
yeah.
is the Canadian Queen. So, but if
Yeah, I
you
mean,
have
our queen, there's not much to be proud of in relation to our queen, though. Like, what she is famous for, literally, is smoking a lot of cigarettes and not brushing her teeth.
well,
That's
my
literally
brother-in-law
what
doesn't brush his teeth at all. He literally doesn't brush his teeth. He's just like, nope, don't believe in it. Very bizarre.
okay, bro. Like,
But that's beside the point. So I don't want to hog the mic. I want to open it up for audience questions, but I feel I need to ask at least one or two more to get into things. So, what are some of the major social issues in Denmark? Like, I don't know anything. Like, what are the people that are concerned about? What do they care
I
about
mean,
right
right
now?
now, of course, Corona takes a lot of space. Like, but if we're like putting that aside as this extraordinary like issue, like the long-term social problems in Denmark, and I would say Scandinavia as a whole, and even most of Europe, is derived from like this enormous wave of very hard to integrate or in any way assimilate into Danish society immigrants. Um, and of course, there is a lot of discourse and debate in relation to this, whether or not this is like in relation to how big the problem actually is. Um, but definitely, I see it personally, and I would say, at least in Denmark, it is a widespread, it's a shared opinion by most Danes that it is a problem because there is a long time example, or there are plenty examples that goes over a long period of time by now, that goes to show that a lot of these people are unable or actively unwilling to actually engage society as it is around them. Like they feel like they either have to criticize and maybe even attack or work against the system, or they just feel isolated from the system because of their affiliation to their own home, that in some cases are very foreign to the place that they find themselves in. And in many ways, that is one of the biggest issues, because I could also say that lately, like in the last 15 to 20 years, crime has been maybe not so much increasing, but it has become very much more violent and focused around major cities or larger cities, where 20 years ago or 30 years ago they were shooting guns at each other, where today they are shooting like RPGs and bazookas, or they did like 10 years ago at least. So like it has escalated a lot in terms of like the gang violence. And if you look at the criminal statistics and just like the music scene, and just live a little bit in Scandinavia, a lot of these gang members come from or associate themselves to foreign groups of nationals. And it manifests in many ways. Like we have a higher public expenditure because of the counteractive efforts in relation to this wave of immigration, be they like criminal or social or economic, actually subsidizing these people to try and make their entrance easier, etc., etc. But the problem itself is the immigrants coming here and distorting the social order that has kind of shaped the utopia that Scandinavia is and should always be. I'm sorry, I became romantic at the end.
That's not romantic unless it's with the wrong woman. So, let's see here. I think we can now open it up to audience fucking participation. I have plenty more questions, but if anyone else wants to ask anything, feel free at any time or say anything.
I
Please
have a
do
question.
ask. Okay.
Apologies if it's been answered. I was looking something up for a bit.
I like talking about Denmark, so please let me repeat myself. I love it.
What is it like when people go to the Faroe Islands, or from the Faroe Islands come to the mainland of Denmark? As I understand, it's somewhat of a dependency on Denmark.
Yeah, like I mean, the Faroe Islands are basically a vassal state of Denmark. Just like Greenland, they are a possession or a pseudo possession of Denmark. They do have like this self-governing, like pseudo independence. However, they are still dependent on Denmark for foreign relations in terms of trade and their exports, and they get a lot of diplomatic aid to keep their infrastructure up and running and like adequately efficient to facilitate what they need, you know.
Yeah, and another. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go.
And another question. It's been a while since we've done business. We bought the Danish Virgin Islands off you. When are you gonna sell us that ice chunk up there?
Oh yeah, I mean you got the Virgin Islands at a cheap for that, because we had bad feelings kind of like of the past, so we didn't want to make money off it. But Greenland you will never get. I can assure you of that. Like there is a higher chance of Greenland getting sovereign independence and becoming a superpower than either American country
There's a
possessing
better
that.
chance that Russia is going to take it, but
Oh, actually, they're already trying, dude. Like they have.
no, I
They have
wasn't joking. I think they made a documentary about it, a movie
I mean, they are
rather, or
literally.
show.
they are putting like buildings on our ice, like building sheds and calling them like scientific labs or like shit like that. And then they
Yeah.
just build a little bit more, a little bit more.
Exactly. Russia's definitely
And
going to
we're
take
actually going up
Greenland
there
if
and
they.
tearing down their stuff. It's not even a joke, actually.
No, man, it's for real. There's a show, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a fictional show, but really well done. It's in a Scandinavian language, I'm not sure which, and it depicts that scenario where Russia invades, I think, Greenland, and it's really interesting. But
I mean, there is a saying that like there is a reason why active professional soldiers on Greenland, and we're not talking stationed at like Nuuk or in like the other big city. No, no. These soldiers, and it's like 120 men or something that are actively patrolling the ice. They are doing it like in the farthest reaches of Greenland. And I mean, there is a reason why we have these patrols like constantly up there. And these
yeah,
are
exactly.
professional soldiers, like
Make no
special
mistake,
forces.
if you fall asleep, you will wake up with Russia occupying your land. I mean, that's a fact.
But we're
So, I mean,
Vikings,
if.
bro. Like we never sleep. We're demons, remember?
Mhm. So that being said, okay? So there's two other things I want to bring up. So if you're comfortable talking about them, one
And
is you said that you are fairly anti-religious, which I find is quite common in Scandinavian peoples, atheism or anti-religionism, so to speak. So I'd like you to talk about your religious background and how you feel about religion and God, etc. Concept of God, and the second is quite open about sort of anti-American sentiment. Again, I'm a Canadian, I'm not American, and not that that matters. So those are the two things I just like you to speak on, like
the
how you feel
last
about
thing you
those
cut
things
out
and
a
why.
little bit.
I was just saying you were pretty open about having sort of an anti-American sentiment, and I was wondering if
As
you would
well,
talk
yes.
about those two things, your attitude about religion and America.
Okay. I mean, in relation to religion to begin with, I would say like the anti-religion is kind of like a distinct choice you have to make. But I would say like atheism is widespread. Like people in Denmark, be they boomers or young people, they give very few fucks about God. Like very, very, very few, if any. Like most young people, when they're like confirmation and all this, they only do it for the material things. Like they don't like half an hour after they are like out of the church, they have forgotten everything that they did in there, and the memory of the experience is laughable, kind of thing. Like, um, so I wouldn't like my anti-theism or my anti-religiosity is kind of a choice that I have made, but it is definitely a shared opinion in Scandinavia. And yes, I would love to outlaw and ban religion in as many places on Earth as possible. Definitely. And America, um, as the I'm sorry for my language, but I have to be blunt when talking about America. The cesspool of evolutionary byproduct. Um, I can't stress enough. Of course, I'm not talking about the people now. Like that, we have to distinguish these things. Like, of course, in life there is always unfortunate occurrences, and not everyone can have it like as they would like it to be or that they want it to be. That is a fact of life. But as a general American individual person, human being, I have as much respect for that person as any other. But the identity, the stereotype, the ideal of America is something that I sincerely loathe, with all my emotions. Like I get agitated um, when I hear America, or not agitated, but I get like, I mean, I can already feel it just now by talking about, like, I can't see a good reason or a benefit that America as a country exists. and I only see benefits to a world without a country like America whatsoever. And I mean, why that I have this sentiment in relation to America is something that a lot of people share, but maybe don't feel as strongly about. But that would be the military-industrial complex, the last almost 100 years of war, fucking perpetual conflict in relation to the creation of America, the spread of like America, the Mexican wars, like America is just a country of savage people or savage ideas. And I can say that as a Viking, like as a true Norseman, like with like not well, almost the beard and everything. I don't have long hair, but I try. Uh, America has not been like, instead of leaving the savagery behind in the old, they kind of still insist to keep it a part of their modern existence with the collective world around them. And that is the suicide, so to say, mission of America, because they cannot function with this like predatorily competitive perspective on things that doesn't function in a group or in teamwork, at least. I hope that.
Okay, awesome. So, does anybody have any questions for Obi-Wan?
You're roboting.
Yeah, you're roboting, Shogun. But I'm
Okay.
assuming that he's going to ask if anyone has any questions. And if so, please do ask them. I can't understand meow, unfortunately.
Duffy just was saying if anybody has any questions for Obi-Wan or any comments or anything they want to say, go ahead. Otherwise, we'll continue to ask a few questions.
As far as I understand that you're made up of a series of peninsulas, islands, and waterways. As far as travel across these go, are they toll roads, or do you have ferries or bridges, or what's infrastructure like connecting the islands all together?
I mean, we like all around Denmark as a whole, we have 1,419 islands, all in all. However, a lot of these islands are literally small mounds of sand in the ocean. Like it's because it's a shallow ocean where we are, because of we basically are like a swamp. So we have a lot of islands, but only 72 out of these 1,400 are like habited or inhabited. And the biggest ones are, of course, Solland, or Sjælland, as we call it in Danish, which is the island, the biggest island closest to Sweden. Then right next to it, to the west, you have another small island between Sjælland and Jutland or Jylland, and that is called Fyn. But yes, we are an island nation who likes to sail a lot still. I mean, young people, I would say, I like sailing myself. I'm actually saving up for a boat instead of a house. So my dream is actually to live on the sea. But unfortunately, a lot of young people today, or the younger generation, the newer generations, they don't really care about stuff like that, unfortunately. So I'm fearing a death for sailing, and thus a lot of decrease in the island life of Denmark. But in relation to the bigger islands and the connectivity of Denmark, both to itself but also Sweden, we have three main bridges. One connecting Jutland to Fyn, one connecting Fyn to Solland or Sjælland, and one connecting Sjælland to Sweden, actually to Malmö. So yeah, three big bridges and a bunch of boats. That's what we have. A couple of ferries as well.
How is Denmark's relationship with the other Scandinavian countries? Are there countries with which there is hostility? Is there countries with which there is particular friendship? Like, how do they see each other?
I mean, I would say we all love and hate equally. Maybe the Danish and the Norwegian have weird bromance in the closet when nobody else is looking. But like besides that, like we are a Scandinavian family. Like even I would say Finland, and I would say the Faroe Islands and Iceland. Like we are in many ways a cultural family. I mean, Finland are their own special kind of deal, but I feel like that they definitely are part of the Scandinavian family and should be treated as such. Um, but we don't have actual animosity towards each other. I mean, when you play sports, it can get pretty heated. Like if we play football or like hockey or handball or something like that. And the only sport Denmark is good at is actually football. Like handball and ice hockey and like most other things, like we get beat up by the mountain men of Sweden and Norway, you know. So, but we banter like brothers. We have a lot of inside jokes and internal like it is bullying or borderline bullying, but it's like a bullying that a brother, a big brother would do to a smaller brother. It's like loving bullying. Um, so there's no hostility. It's all good. We just differ on the ways to conduct ourselves, societal, like the
Yeah,
way we organize our governments. That is basically like the differences. But as a people, we're pretty um, how should I say, aligned on how things like that we should treat people with respect no matter what, etc., etc. It's just a
right.
matter of how logic weighs, I should say. Some people like emotions more than logic, and vice versa. So, and yeah.
Um,
Uh, Go ahead, normal man.
so this is a bit of a question that just stems from one of my hobbies, as I understand of how Europe has its broadcasts. Is Denmark more on the aerial, or do y'all use more like Germany? Are you more satellite for broadcasts?
Broadcast, as in, what do you mean?
Television, does your television come over aerials or antennas, or is it delivered mainly to
That
people's
is a
homes?
very, very strange question, normal guy.
Yeah, like it was a flanking, but it's through cable most often.
Oh, cable, okay.
I have another particular question of my own pertaining to what we said before. How popular is MMA, martial arts, UFC in Denmark? Are there Gracie Jiu-Jitsu gyms there? Is there MMA gyms there? Do people watch UFC?
There are definitely MMA gyms, and gladly a lot of. Do most Danes care about MMA? With a crying heart, I would have to be honest and say no. Actually, most Danes don't give a fuck about that shit. Like I even have a bunch of friends from my old days wrestling, football, work, etc. That would be the kind of guy that would be inclined to actually enjoy MMA, like as any man would enjoy a UFC spectacle. But they don't really. They might say that, oh, okay, I'll check it out, but they never will, and that's the unfortunate part. It's very few that are actually into MMA. However, we just got our boy in, bro, Mark O. Madsen, our Olympic
Is
host.
Um,
Yeah, okay.
as far as your old culture goes, did you is there any bit of preservation or restoration of like the old fighting styles or the uh, physical forms of what the Vikings would do?
Physical what forms?
Yeah, as far as hand-to-hand combat or form of martial arts.
I mean, I'm not.
Sorry, but is Marco Madsen a UFC fighter?
Yeah, he just got signed not so long ago and have had 2 fights in UFC.
This is the one that Tiny Cactus has been telling me about, right?
Yeah. He
Yeah,
is the
he's a
hope.
huge fan of him.
We all are, bro. We all are.
I haven't
Wanted
seen him fight yet. This is very interesting. So he's a Danish UFC fighter with 2 fights in the
Greco-Roman
UFC.
wrestler. Yeah, he never boxed,
I'm
and that's the problem, though. Like he never
gonna see
boxed.
if I can find a highlight video of him and post it up in the chat for anyone who might be interested. Because yeah, it's very interesting indeed. What you need is one big star to break
Yeah,
it
to
in, and
catalyze the
then
interest. And he is our big hope. That's
so general question I sometimes ask, right? Most people are not that aware of Denmark. I'm Canadian. I'm not very aware of Denmark or any of these countries very well,
all
other than
good.
through my Discord friendships. So what would you, on the one hand, think is perhaps a misconception people have you'd want to correct? On the other hand, what's something you think people don't know that you'd want them to know about Scandinavia in general, Denmark in particular?
I mean, I know that I won't be able to actually kill the misunderstanding. But one of the like I literally I don't get angry when people say this to me, even though it is very, very mistakenly wrong. But I know I won't be able to stop people from saying it and using it against Scandinavian people. But I feel like the idea that Scandinavia is being overrun and overtaken and with foreign people and Muslims mainly, that is a myth that saddens me a lot, because it first of all it is a comment that is meant to hurt. Like a comment like that is directly aimed at hurting like a national feeling or like, uh, and that's very, very dishonorable.
It
But
depends
then
on
to
who says it.
excuse me.
I think it depends on who's saying it, what their intentions are when they say it, because to an extent I would agree with what they say, but it depends on who's saying it. If it's like some troll, then it's going to be negative, but if it's like said out of a good reason or like out of good intention, then it's better.
But how do you see it as a valid point, though?
Well, it kind of depends. Like to say, if you were to say that every single immigrant was a problem, that would of course be incorrect, and it would be morally a bad thing to do. But if you do like acknowledge problems that exist with things like terrorism and gang warfare, then that's okay.
I was gonna say that's kind of derailing there.
All right, well, let's
Sorry,
get back on tack. I don't know what you're getting at exactly, unless someone else did understand it. Yeah, Weaver.
Thank you. The question I have, 0biwon, is what do you think about U.S. foreign policy, specifically, like for example, the Iraq War, or the war, the Afghanistan War, or any of the new wars?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, I warned you guys when I talk about America, I get at. But I see, and this might piss off a lot of Americans. But
Hey, listen, go right ahead. Get out what's on your chest.
you have no idea, bro.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. But America, I feel like is not, or it might not be acting as independently as it would seem. America is a developmental project of the old colonies. If you look, and it might sound strange, but if you look at ever since America was established and they were done fighting the Mexicans, and like they actually had their own. I can't now. I'm a dumb European. It's 50 states, right? Or is it 52?
It's 50.
It's 50 states, bro.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm such a stupid.
I just All right,
But
I
when
can't
you
unmute
guys got your
myself.
50, when you guys got your 50 states, ever since that point, the wars that America has been engaged in, be it in the Middle East, in Africa, in Asia, or wherever, destabilizing South American countries, it has all been done in a way where America is deploying in lands that have been previously owned in many ways or administrated by Western colonialism. And I feel like America is dying without a cause, because the premise that US foreign policy is defending is not a premise that benefits America, but it is a premise that benefits old money in Europe. And that is something that I would find that extremely obvious if it was happening in my country. I mean, we have a very positively, we are very engaged as a populace here in Denmark and most of Scandinavia in our politics, be it locally or nationally. So we would never be able to do this. But I find it disgraceful to the human species that so few Americans are able to actually acknowledge the facts of reality, and acknowledge that their governments are basically murderous armies of mercenaries that are deluded by religion and bad education to fear a lot of strange things. However, the thing that I get angry about, because I mean, being a disgrace is one thing, but there is, unfortunately for Americans, in relation to my empathy, there is a lot of Americans that are aware of what's going on, that America is not a good, what their military is doing is not benefiting, that their military industrial complex is corrupting their political system and destabilizing entire continents on this planet. However, they are, even though this has been going on for generations and people have been aware for generations, no American group or movement are able to stop this, be it with any method of attack, or whatever you want to call it, like any way possible. Like America has the most free constitution that allows for all kinds of weaponized militant, and you have guns out your behind. So like all these bad things that are going on in terms of corruption, foreign interference and destabilization, private predatory exploitation of the southeastern or the the Southeast Asia peninsula and area, in terms of your private businesses and production, and also China, of course. But like 99% of all aspects related to America is like nothing that I would ever associate with. Like I have people in my life who have stolen from me, like, and lied to my face, and I have more respect for them than I have for the America, so to say, and what America stands for.
Can I ask you a
Well,
question?
sorry. I wanted to
Sorry
thank
for
you
ranting.
for no ranting at all. This was great. We can always do more podcasts anytime, any topic. I really appreciate you coming on the show today and telling us a bit about life in Denmark and your thoughts. We're trying to observe a little more of a schedule on these episodes so we don't go too long or take too much of your time. So I think we'll wrap it up now. Do you want to make a closing statement to the audience? Some of these podcasts get 100 views. Some of them get, biggest one up so far up to 1,000, but they'll get up to more platforms. So, you got an audience. What do you want to get out to anyone who might hear this podcast?
First of all, I would like to address the 18 or 17 people in this room, you included, Shogun. Thank you for staying and listening to my Scandinavian squabble. We are a very small people, small country, so we like the attention when the spotlight is actually on us. So we jump and bathe in that glaze, you know. So I sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting my honest opinion and my honest thoughts. And anyone listening at a stage, good wind or may the wind be in your back. And thank you very much for listening. I hope you definitely learned something. And please spam Shogun that you want more of this. Please do.
Thank you, my friend. And regardless of if anybody spams me or not, these podcasts are open. We don't pay for our recording studio. It's a free platform, and we all you really need to do is DM me a time, a date, and a topic, and I can announce and run a podcast very easily. So please do so at any time. I would love to do another one. This was great. Thank you to the live audience. Thank you to our guest, 0biwon. Of course, we wish to see you always active in the voice chat, not just you, but everybody. It's the one thing, if you appreciate what we do here, be active in the voice chat. Bring your friends to the voice chat. That's number one. So join us on all social media, the Roundtable Discord server. You can find us through Discord, Politics or Conspiracy. We're right at the top with the cool black and white charging knight on horseback. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, YouTube, Reddit, Patreon, GoFundMe. We have the roundtablediscord.com. We are literally everywhere and more. Coming to your mom's bedroom tonight. Okay, so everybody please jump up to the free chat. And thank you very much to our recorders. Please upload this to RT Recorded as soon as you can. Thanks very much. And same time, same place tomorrow.